Borno, Katsina, Benue, Sokoto, Plateau, and even Edo states, these states have fallen into acts of violence in recent months. Hundreds of people have been murdered, houses razed, and livestock killed. Nigeria's insecurity challenges range from insurgency to conflicts between farmers and herders to organized crime, looting, and abduction for ransom. Although several parts of the country experience violence, the north remains the epicenter of the country's worsening insecurity. To combat this, President Bola Tinubu has backed the establishment of state police and a review of security operations, but there are calls to provide better weapons and train Nigeria's soldiers on the ground to improve their chances in the war against terrorism. I'm joined now in the studio by a former spokesman of the Nigerian Army, retired Brigadier General Sani Usman, and by security consultant with experience in training systems and infrastructure, BEM Garba. Gentlemen, glad to have you in the studio with me.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me start with you, Sani. Why has the insecurity issue become what I will call so intractable, and seemingly worsening, as you just had me read, with the recent killings of soldiers, lives lost in Borno, and particularly attack on fortified military bases? I can't understand that. Help me understand that.
Yeah, of course, I can understand why you do not understand. And if we are going to talk about why we have been having this protracted conflict, especially in various parts of the country, the simple fact that I think there are certain things that are missing in dealing with the security challenges in this country. First and foremost, and if you are faced as a nation with existential threats exposed by the insurgents, Boko Haram, and their splinter groups, ISWAP, Ansaru, and the rest, and of course the activities of other non-state actors like bandits and kidnappers. We're not even talking about ethno-religious conflicts here and there, wanton killings and destructions. Now, what is it that is missing? First and foremost, when you are dealing with issues of that magnitude, each component of the Nigerian society ought to be on the same page. On the same page in the sense that, and it may interest you to know, the farther away you move from the epicenters of this complex, take for instance, let's assume Boko Haram, let's say Borno, Yobe. The farther away you move, the farther away you are associated with the problem. And it shouldn't be so. The same thing with the Northwest. And it shouldn't be so. Now, we are supposed to mobilize the whole of the Nigerian society so that we are facing one direction, so that we can deal with this problem without politicization. And each and every component of the Nigerian society is contributing her best. And you talk about the political will and accountability. And you have timelines and indicators that, look, Boko Haram are occupying so number of towns and places. Within certain number or certain days, months, we should be able to dislodge them, bring about law and order. Those are the things. But of course, it is not just enough to have that, roadmap. You have to make provisions for, accomplishment of that task. You need to have the military and the security forces. You need to have the supporting elements, because if you look at it, bulk of all these criminal elements, be they the insurgent, be they the bandit and kidnappers, to a large extent they mingle with the society. And to some extent, especially when you talk about kidnappers and bandits, their main center of gravity is the issue of information. And we have seen it. especially with the counter-insurgency effort, there were instances when certain measures were taken. You know, curfew was declared, you know, banning of market, banning of flights, banning of sale of certain items and all the rest. And you have to go all the hog to ensure that those kind of things that you are doing are yielding the desired results before you think of any other thing. Then issue number 2, a kind of proper understanding of these threats and how they manifest. Take for instance, what started as a local grievances, and by the way, any time you have security challenges or any time in any given nation or society, such security challenges are predicated on the socio-economic and political atmosphere within that society. So we talked about the, you know, well-being of the society, the level of cohesion, you know, of the society, and of course, the state apparatus to deal with this. Are they really professionally trained? Are they well equipped? And what is the, you know, the response mechanism from their own end and beyond, even because it thrives on information. So those people that are given the information, what do you have, you know, in terms of protection? There are other countries, they can even move you from one town or from one state to another, have a new identity, a better way of life, simply because you provide information. And of course, if they give the information, it's being acted upon. Unlike an instance where, you know, you give the information, the next thing you see the person on the street and he will come after you. So it is a combination of so many things. But importantly is the issue of governance and political will. All right.
Governance, political will, information, holistic approach. You've raised quite a lot of issues there that even the Northern Elders Forum, I've had to interview the DDG here, that has raised. I will come back on that. At least, BEM, at least with 5 people killed in an attack in a village in Borno State where people had recently moved after years of displacement. Reports say residents of Darul Jama warned the military for 3 days about Boko Haram massing near the village, but they did nothing. What do you make of that? Because I have a general, ex-generals that have flagged intelligence failure as a major reason. Is it that our intelligence is anachronistic, or that heed is not taken to the intelligence when proffered, like what I just pointed out now?
That's a very sensitive subject. It's a very sensitive subject because if information was given, then there should have been a response. I don't know why that happened, but if there was information, then there should have been a response. And I'm sure that there's a mix-up somewhere. But if there was information, there should have been a response.
Okay, let me take you on, I'll come back to you, Sani. Let me take you on what the NEF brought up, which you also have just mentioned now. The question of the forum is also calling on the government to deploy adequately. That's the phrase they used. Adequately trained, armed, and equipped security forces, which you have just mentioned now, with clear rules of engagement to protect civilians, populations, and secure international borders. This is also the question of borders. Now my question is, I mean, we've had our soldiers, international fraud, they've done very well. So my question is it that they are not trained adequately? I can add, do they have enough weapons? He's raised that issue. Are they not trained adequately? Do they have enough weapons? Or is it a question of boots on the ground?
Okay, so I'll respond to this based on the perspective I have.
Yep.
I've been around the armed forces for many years. I was actually born into the armed forces, lived in the barracks, and I've seen the armed forces evolve through many cycles. Many years ago, things were as we wanted them to be in view, when you put them against the threat levels that we had in our society. And then there were some gaps. You know, there were gaps over time where we didn't really realize that the threat level was evolving at a rate.
And there was a need to fill those gaps.
And there was a need to fill those gaps. So we found ourselves in a situation where the armed forces and the security architecture, the apparatus, they're very well trained in terms of the frequency of the training. They have a lot of schools, they have a lot of programs. But at some point, the curriculum that was being taken at these programs was seeming not to match the evolution of the threats. So it started to look like you're studying Windows 2 aggressively when there's Windows 10 already available to you at the same price. So there was a lot of training going on, but the question was, how relevant was the training to
the threat on
ground? And then the issue of equipment as well. A lot of emphasis in the past has been placed on acquisition of equipment. Sometimes equipments are actually acquired because of how they look, and maybe even what's going on TV. You know, movies and things like that were influencing what many people wanted to buy. But like I said, this is a cyclical thing. It's been going on time after time. And I have seen, I must confess that I am seeing, because of the perspective where I'm looking from right now, I'm seeing a very concerted effort to bridge these gaps. These things take time. In terms of...
Which we don't seem to have.
We don't have time, but these things take time. This weekend, I went to Kaduna by road, and I was pleased to see the amount of security on the road. I was pleased to see that. I've not seen that type of security on the road before, or in a long time. You know, so I would say that because of what I'm seeing, what I've been exposed to, I'm seeing some efforts. I'm seeing some very serious efforts to catch up and to bridge the gaps that were created in the past.
But is it enough? I'll come to you back, General. Peter Obi, 100 people killed over the weekend, just this weekend. The courts across Edo and other states I've mentioned. He's calling for an all-out, what he calls it, he says, Nigeria should declare a war on insecurity. The NEF, Northern Elders Forum, are also asking the president to declare a national emergency. We talked about the North being an epicenter. They said they've actually documented over 9 months. They prepared it and sent it to the president. They've not got a reply. So what do you make of these comments about declaring a war on insecurity and then a national emergency?
Well, to even help you out in respect of that, first, even with what they have said, I have been the secretary of the Arewa Consultative Forum Special Committee on Security, which was led by a former Chief of Army Staff, a former Minister of Interior, and his deputy was a former Inspector General of Police who did a marvelous job, you know, for Zamfara State government, you know, in terms of mapping out the security challenges, especially as regards to, you know, banditry and kidnapping, specifically Zamfara State and the Northwest in general. So I know what I know. So this, we also submitted similar report, a roadmap, you know, giving phases that could have dealt decisively with the security challenges.
To the presidency?
Not to the presidency.
Okay. To the
But
state?
to the Board of Trustees, of course, they too, they are supposed to have constructive engagement with the state governors, particularly those from the northern part of the country, the 19 states, and of course they will escalate it further. So, so it's something that I'm very, very familiar with. But going back to your question again, in respect of this, I would like to, situate security challenges in the context they evolve or they are. Now let's go back to Borno State. The unfortunate incident that happened in Dar al-Jamal, between Banki and Bama, where we lost
5 soldiers, I think so.
We lost 58 precious souls by the official figure.
Yeah, that's.
And then we lost 5 gallant soldiers.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at the number 58 and 5, what will it give you?
I will give you 63.
Good. So,
and even they are stocked, that it might even be more.
Any soul lost is a devastating blow to humanity and to the Nigerian people. My sincere condolence to the good people of Borno, the military, and the families of these deceased persons. Now, putting it in a proper context and perspective, anybody who has been a keen observer of what has been happening in that state, for instance, will understand that there had been concerted effort by the state government to resettle the internally displaced person, because the IDP camp have become something else. First, the concept of war economy in which people are benefiting. And then secondly, the issue of infiltration by the insurgents themselves to have a foothold back into the mainstream of the society. The state government has gone out of its way to construct 5,000 houses so that these people can go back to their ancestral home. You need to be in the northeast to have understand the magnitude of this effort. It is not just mud block, it's more than bricks. Now, the insurgents are not happy, and of course there are certain people, the harbingers of conspiracy, of silence, and so many other vested and interest groups. So you look at it from that perspective. And if information has been given and the soldiers did not act, you mean to tell me that those soldiers committed suicide? Or how? How did they die? Is it not in response to that? And it may interest you to know that typically the insurgents, they decided to attack the forward operation base that is, protecting that community. While the soldiers are responding, they decided to split over and go to the community. And thank God, there are, evidences using modern technology, recordings of what happened.
Now you've brought in a subject.
So when you look at that, I'm not justifying this wanton killing, but you should look at it from that perspective. But when you look at the Northwest, just quite long, not far away from my hometown, 30 worshippers were killed in cold blood.
Yep.
In the most heinous manner you can imagine.
I
In fact, there was a particular, room, 5 women, I think 7 of them, women and children were roasted, and including the insurgent, one of the bandits himself.
Yeah.
The responders, the military, were the one who opened to find out that.
Yeah,
so you look at how have we been treating this issue of banditry, and kidnapping.
And that's what
now you go back again, other parts of the country, right from Uromi down to Mangu, you know what happened.
Yeah.
Nigerians are so heartless, some of them. that they take the life of a fellow Nigerian. The mango is the most dastardly because
Incident.
they share common things.
Incident, yeah.
They were traveling, going for a wedding. They got stuck, so they decided to ask questions,
And that
only
was
for them to be killed. In fact, one of them was trying to run away from the burning bus. They went and brought him back and put him there.
Let me bring in.
What value system? When you are dealing with such security challenges, you have to find out what brought about it, what are the triggers,
And then deal with
what
them.
are
And then deal with them. Let me bring in Bem. Bem, the time is too short to deal with all the things we want to deal with here. Effective policing is said to be the bedrock of internal security. What do you make of state policing, which the president says they'll have to work out a framework with the National Assembly? I mean, that they seem to be, he seems to be speaking up on it now. What do you make of state policing? Mind you, in the context of even state governors or governments having power to now control the police. But what do you make of state policing, what the president is saying?
So, from the standpoint of the number of policemen we need to police a nation like Nigeria, there's a huge deficit. There's a huge deficit. Now, the mechanism for filling that deficit could come either as a reorientation of the existing police and then further employment of new people, or the state police as a solution, which it's all about frameworks. It's all about laws and the implementation of these laws.
Yeah.
If good laws are put in place to protect all of us from the state police being taken advantage of, then it will be a good solution, if you ask me. It's just, how will the state police issue be managed? Yes.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ben Garba and retired General, Brigadier General Sani Usman. Thank you, gentlemen. That's all the time we have. I have another guest on the program. Thank you for your time on the program. I hope we'll have some other time to discuss these issues, and hope that the security that's been intractable will be brought to an end. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.